Good evening and welcome to my videos again. Tonight I'm going to be talking about the myth of stopping power or knockdown power. You hear this a lot when talking about choosing calibers. One person will say, well, I chose this caliber versus that caliber because it has better knockdown power or better stopping power. I used to work with a guy who would tell customers all the time that if they got a 45 ACP and they shot someone anywhere on the body from any distance, whether it was 3 feet or 10 yards, that person would instantly fall over and that would be the end of the fight right there. And he was wrong on so many levels. And it was actually quite surprising that I heard that exact same thing today in a video that I was watching. And I just have to dispel the myth right here. There are only two primary reasons why a human being falls down upon being shot with a handgun, or any gun for that matter. One is the psychological effects of being shot. You realize you've been shot and you fall down because you've been shot. It hurts to get shot, and the pain psychologically affects you to the point where you fall down and you decide that you're done, you're not going to continue your fight. You could probably physically continue to go, but you just decide not to because it hurts and you don't want to continue. There's also, and that's just the psychological effects. The second reason why people fall down from being shot is the physical effects of being shot. And those would be an actual stopping round caused by damage of the projectile, a good pelvis shot that shattered the pelvis, making them unable to continue to move forward, a severe organ damage shot that would, let's say a shot to the chest that hits the heart, damaging the heart, not allowing it to pump blood, resulting in death. That would be a good reason to stop your attack. So those are the primary two reasons why people fall down from being shot. Psychological effects, physical effects. There is no magic bullet. As fragile as the human body is, it is incredibly resilient and not made to fall down just because it got a hole punched in it or even several holes punched in it. There was a story not long ago of a man who got shot 8 times in the chest with a 45 ACP. Every single bullet missed a vital organ and he was fine. Nothing wrong with him. 8 times in the chest with a 45 ACP. That magic stopping bullet didn't quite do the job. There are people who are shot with shotguns and survive. I read a book not too long ago entitled The Year We Disappeared, of a police officer who got shot in the face with a shotgun. Survived. He's still alive to this day, as far as I know. It's been 20 years, I think, and he finally published the book. So there are no guarantees as to the caliber and what it is going to do or what it's not going to do, for that matter. On the other side of that, there are people who have gotten shot once with a .22 and dropped dead in 5 seconds. There are no guarantees whatsoever. All that being said, and how you apply that to choosing a defensive handgun or defensive caliber, carry the largest caliber that you can shoot well, and if it applies, in the package that carries the most ammunition that you can conceal, if you're planning on doing concealed carry. For any kind of defensive round, the largest caliber, choose the largest caliber that you can shoot comfortably. And the reason for that is because the larger the caliber, the better the chances of you actually accomplishing the physical effects of bringing an aggressor to a stop. You can't always count on the psychological effects of, oh my goodness, I've been shot, or I'm in a lot of pain, so I'm going to stop. Things like drugs, even adrenaline, and even sheer desperation can keep an attacker going even though they have been shot multiple times. I must caution everyone, though, not to get too comfortable or put too much faith in any kind of equipment, whether it be a gun or a caliber for that matter. There is a defensive makeup that we like to think of, And the priorities in that defensive makeup are first mindset. First, you have to have the will and the drive to survive no matter what your options, no matter what your tools that you might have available. Because sometimes you don't have a firearm available, whether it's not allowed via your state laws or not allowed because of your circumstances where you are. Sometimes a firearm or any tool is not available and it's just you. First, there, of course, is mindset, as I mentioned. The second is tactics. Once you get in a situation, first you have that drive to survive, and that gets you into the tactics part of it, where you start trying to figure out ways to get out of that situation successfully. Third on that list of defensive makeup priorities would be skills and training. Have you had any hand-to-hand defensive training that you could utilize? Have you had any firearms training? Have you had any knife training? Have you had any training that allows you to use what you have available? If all you have is your hands, do you have any training with that? And then lastly on that defensive makeup list is equipment. And that equipment would include firearms, knives, improvised weapons. That would be your equipment that you would use, but first is mindset, then tactics, training, and equipment is at the very bottom. And if you start putting that firearm above all the rest of those priorities on that list, what ends up happening is when you run out of bullets and the attacker is still coming, or you're still in that situation, or your equipment fails, you spend precious time fretting about what went wrong instead of changing your tactics to encompass something that might actually end up working in the long run. Uh, as far as it comes to the whole caliber war, caliber debate, modern hollow points really make that a moot point. And everyone always brings up the military. Well, when the military went from the 45 to the 9mm, everyone's was horrified, and that's excuse me, primarily because they are restricted to using ball ammunition only. I used to give an illustration when I was working in a gun store, where you take a piece of cheese and take a cheese knife and stab that piece of cheese and just pull the knife right out. What happens to the piece of cheese? It just closes. The hole that you made just closes, and sometimes you can't even tell that a hole was made. Now take that same piece of cheese, stab it, and then twist the knife and see what happens. Instead of having just a puncture hole that goes straight through, now you have a rough ground hole that stays open and stays damaged. That is essentially the difference between your full metal jackets, ball ammunition, and your hollow points. Your hollow points are designed to expand, to maximize that wound track damage, and attempt to give you those physical effects that actually stop and bring down an attacker. And getting caught up in your stopping power or knockdown power debates only puts unreasonable expectations on cartridges. There is no ultimate handgun caliber. It simply doesn't exist. I do think that there are calibers that are too small for defensive purposes due to ammunition failures, lack of ability to create those physically stopping effects quickly. In addition, there is a difference in performance between your service calibers in ball or full metal jacket ammunition. However, modern hollow points nearly equalize the service calibers and above in effectiveness, rendering the debate really irrelevant. What's most important is the mindset and the will to survive, followed by tactics and skills and training to use whatever that equipment that you have that is available. The tragedy of this myth is that it's still going and being repeated by well-meaning gun enthusiasts, and it's putting undue confidence in calibers and undermining otherwise perfectly acceptable calibers. A small hit is better than a large miss, as they say. Get the right mindset, think for yourselves, do your own research, train with what you have so that you can use it effectively in order to make those physically stopping shots, and don't put so much faith in your equipment that if or when it fails to live up to your expectations, you are left surprised.